Welcome to the Totally Honest Cooking Show. I'm Mark. Today we are making shrimp tacos or shrimp fajitas, one of those. Anyway, this is a head on, tail on, shell on shrimp. I bought these because I was thinking maybe I was going to make a shrimp stock and then use some cornstarch to make a kind of zesty sauce that goes over everything. Instead, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to marinate the shrimp for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to cook them up with some fajita peppers and stuff, and it's going to be good. If this is your first time with me, or if you've never bought the head-on, tail-on shrimp and you want to see how it's done, you grasp the shrimp, you give the head a little twist, it comes right off, you throw it in the big bowl, then you take the shell off the body part, there, you shelled it. Now, after you shelled it, you got a couple options, right? I love options. We've got to devein it. Okay? The reason we got to devein it is because the intestines run from the top here. And if you don't devein it, it's going to get grit and sand and stuff into your meal. You don't want that, right? So, we're going to get in there. Once you've done it a few times, it goes faster. I'll note that. This is the first cut. Sometimes on this show there are edits, and I do cut. But once you get this guy out, you're good to go. Now there is a second vein. This is the intestine, right? The other vein on the other side is the blood vein. You don't have to take that out at all, but you can since you're already here and you got your knife out. You might as well, right? This one is mostly for presentation, to be honest with you. And there, we have peeled and deveined a shrimp. Oh, cut. Okay, now I'm going to go do that for 2 pounds worth of shrimp, and then I'll be back to make our tacos. Once we're done with that, we're just going to cover it in plastic wrap, and then we're going to stick it in the fridge until we're ready to make our tortillas and everything else. Now it's time to make the tortillas. So we're going to start with instant corn masa flour. We're making corn tortillas. And you're just going to follow the manufacturer's instructions on the back, ideally, right? So we're taking 2 cups of masa flour for this. I'm making 12 tortillas-ish. We've got about 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt here that I'm just tossing in. Give it a little mix around. Let everybody know each other. And now we're going to pour in about a cup of warm water. And we're just gonna mix it around a little bit, let everybody get to know each other. Pour in the rest. Now, we're just going to mix it around. Get in there. If it seems like it's not enough after you've mixed it a little bit, you can add more. But we're just going to start by mixing it around, because you never know. Okay, so in this case it wasn't enough, so I'm adding a little bit more warm water, and I'm just gonna keep it moving. Okay, needs a little bit more, not a lot. Now the trick to most cooking, as I'm sure you know if you've watched this channel at all, is just don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid to mess it up. You'll probably have something edible in the end. And if you don't, have a backup plan. I've got some store-bought tortillas in the fridge, but you got a whole bag of flour there. You can't mess it up that many times. This is done. I'm going to put a damp cloth over it for about 20 or 30 minutes while I go ahead and cut up my vegetables. Because we're making fajita style tacos, which I guess are just fajitas, but you know, whatever. While that's going, I'm going to cut up the following. 2 green peppers, big. 2 red peppers, kind of medium. 2 honkin' jalapenos that I'm also going to seed because I am not a huge spice freak. And 3 medium onions, small onions, whatever you think these are, okay? I'm going to chop them all up. The onions will be half moons, these will be half moons, these will be sticks, right? And then I'll be back to start making the vegetable accoutrement. I thought about chopping them all up, but I feel like we've done that to death on this show. If you really want to watch me dice up all of these things, go watch my shrimp grits video, give it some love. I'll be back in a little bit. A half an hour later, my vegetables are chopped, and we're ready to take out our dough. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do this. If you're doing this assembly line model, I would probably roll up like 12 balls out of this, and then I would press them one at a time, and then I would go over to the griddle. But I have the smallest kitchen known to man. My cooking space you see in front of you is this. The lighting gear is over on a secondary counter that's very, very small in terms of access. So I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it one at a time. And most people tell you plastic wrap is the way to go for this on your tortilla press. If you don't have a tortilla press, use the bottom of a heavy pan. It'll be fine. But most people will tell you to use plastic wrap in your tortilla press. I suck at that. It doesn't work for me. I hate it. So I cut open a Ziploc bag and then I reuse it. And that's just what I do. So I'm going to start, and this doesn't feel hydrated enough, but we're going to try it anyway, just to see. Because it should feel kind of dry. Yeah, this is, okay, never mind, this is fine. And we're just going to stick this down in our tortilla press. And then we're going to close our tortilla press. Then we're going to open our tortilla press. And we have a tortilla. While we're doing that, our cast iron skillet should be heating to like medium low. You know, it shouldn't be blazing hot. And we should be ready to just dump this right on. Now, notice, it should come right off. You can go thinner than this. Don't make the balls huge. Go for like golf ball sized. And just go to town. So that, and that's basically it. And if you don't get 12 out of it, don't worry about it. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just want to have enough tortillas that you and whoever you are feeding can have tacos. Okay. So you might have to fiddle with this a little bit. The first tortilla is often kind of finicky. But that's why we do a test tortilla. Once you feel like you're ready to go, I put a little oil in there. Let it sizzle a little bit. Then I drop my tortilla in. Then I let my tortilla cook. I'm going to be honest with you, Internet. I'm not the best at making tortillas, but I always like these better than I like the store brand. And I feel that it's worth making. And the more you practice, the better you'll get. I feel like this is one of the reasons that we make shows like this one. You know, it doesn't really matter if they're perfect. They're still delicious. I've eaten 3 already, which is another reason I encourage you, if you're making tortillas, make a whole boatload of tortillas. Okay. With our tortillas, such as they are, done, we're going to go ahead and make our marinade. If you have multiple people cooking, or if you're skipping the step with the tortillas, you can just put this part in right when you would be making the dough. The reason I don't is because I'm just here doing this, and you only have half an hour to marinate. After half an hour, the lime juice that we're going to put in at the end, it's going to start to break down the shrimp more than you want it to. And lime juice can actually cook shrimp, so you don't want to do all that. Anyway, we're going to start with 1.5 teaspoons, we'll say heaping teaspoon of chili powder. To that, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of cumin. I'm going to throw in 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. And I'm feeling frisky tonight, so I'm going to throw in 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika, which is optional, but I feel like it'll give it a certain smoky flavor and a paprika-y flavor. I'm also going to put in 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. Mix that up. I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 tablespoons of oil. This will help the stuff that we're adding in here. I'm using vegetable oil. You can add olive oil if olive oil is your bag. I'm using vegetable oil because it's neutral, and I want the shrimp and the spices to stand out. Once we've done that, we're just going to toss in all that stuff with reckless abandon because we already mixed it up. Then we're going to roll our lime. Once it feels sufficiently rolled, cut it in half, and you're putting the juice of a lime in this container. Like many of the recipes on this show, I'm kind of making it up as I go, based on recipes that I've tried. So if it doesn't look like quite enough, we can always add more. But it looks like it's coating, and it looks like it's coating enough, so I'm not too concerned about that. Once you've done that, we're just going to coat it with plastic wrap and stick it back in the fridge until we're ready to cook it. That'll be less than half an hour, because again, you don't want to marinate this for more than half an hour. It'll start to break down the proteins in the shrimp, and it won't be as good. And next up, we're making a quick sour cream lime sauce for our tacos. If you've got any of the thicker parts of the stem, like this, get rid of them. The thinner parts, you can eat them. They're fine. So once we've dissected everything, just gonna try to roll it up-ish, and you're just gonna start running your knife over it. Make sure that you know where your fingers are. You're gonna try to do the little claw thing. I'm really bad at it with this. Don't cut your fingers. Don't hack about. You can just... It does get easier as you get the pile a little bit more under control. If I'm going to cut myself in an episode, it will probably be one where I'm messing with cilantro, because I don't have patience and I don't have proper technique for knives. It is on the list of things for me to learn. I'm not there yet. Once I learn, I will make a knife work video. Until then, don't listen to me when it comes to knives. And that's good enough for me. I go for kind of a rough chop on herbs most of the time. So this is going to seem like a lot, because it's a lot. So we're going to start with a cup of sour cream. Now, then we're going to put in the juice of half a lime. Again, don't forget to roll your lime. Only half a lime this time, don't go nuts. Then we're going to start with our whisk. If it still doesn't feel like there's enough, you can add a little more lime. I'm going to add the whole lime, actually. And I'm looking for a certain amount of resistance against this. We want it to be thick but light enough that you can move through it without feeling a huge amount of resistance. Then I'm going to add about a tablespoon and a half of the fresh cilantro. And then I'm going to stick it in the fridge while I do the vegetables. Okay, we're going to start the onion. I'm just realizing now that I didn't put any garlic in the marinade. So instead of putting garlic in the marinade like I wanted to, I'm just going to go ahead and put it in with the vegetables. And it'll probably be fine. Okay, so medium heat. I've got a few tablespoons of oil heated. And I'm just going to throw in my onions. We'll add the rest when those cook down. And I'm just going to take these 4 cloves of garlic, mince them up, and I'm going to toss them in the bowl with the peppers. About halfway through, we're going to realize that we should have used a much larger pan, and we're going to swap our pan. Okay, at this point, the shrimp have been marinating about 15 minutes. And I'm going to say that's good enough for me. I'm going to turn the heat on this. We're going to go medium again. And because it's already kind of sizzling, I'm just going to go ahead and dump these in. Make sure that you tend to these a little bit while they cook. Same thing for the shrimp. You will end up throwing these all together in the same pan by the end, but we do want to get these cooked before we mix them together. Remember to check the shrimp pretty often. They cook pretty fast. Sometimes people forget that. Not me, but you know, people. He says, perhaps having forgotten. Once the shrimp start looking done, I'm going to add the last of the cilantro in, because why not? Then I'm going to move it over and let it finish in the pan with the vegetables. And we're just going to give it a couple minutes just so that we're sure that all the shrimp is cooked and that the vegetables are done to our liking. And while that's wrapping up, we're going to take a little bit of our sauce, smear it on our tortillas. If you want to shred cheese, now would be the time to do that. I'm not going to, but I might later. Not going to lie. Okay. So, if I lost footage, the reason I lost footage is because the battery ran out, and it didn't give me the low battery warning until 2 seconds before it ran out, which I didn't find very helpful. Anyway, I reserve the right to add cheese to my taco later. This is looking done, so I'm going to go ahead and serve. Make sure you got a little bit of everything. I usually try for 3 I usually try for 3 shrimp for the big tacos and 2 shrimp for the smaller tacos. And that's my whole plan. Okay. And that's that. Shrimp tacos. This is my New Year's dinner. And this is something I make a few times a year. I highly recommend, and I hope you enjoy it. Recipes are always in the description below the video. Go ahead, like, subscribe, click the little bell, and I'll see you next time. Happy New Year.